Hi, Emmanuel. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, man.
Yes, yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Yes,
Yeah,
can
we can hear
anybody
you.
hear me?
Good morning.
Can you see
Yeah,
my screen?
yeah, we can see you now.
Yeah, so today my topic is web foundation, mastering HTML and CSS from scratch. So this is for like those that just want to like get into web development. So first of all, they have to like start with HTML and CSS. You get so introductions, which is to my presentation. We'll be understanding what foundation is and the key to every modern website. So first of all, we want to create a web. You have to like know what HTML and CSS get. So HTML is like the structure of every website. While CSS is like the design of every website. You get, let's say like a house now. HTML is like, let me say the room, the parlor and everything. While CSS is like the painting, the furniture, like the thing that makes like house more beautiful and everything. So once you master HTML and you master CSS, you're going to like create a modern web design, web app or web application. So let me just give you an example. Let me give you an example of what HTML look like. Now this is a simple example of what HTML is. You get HTML is like the body of a website. So this is how if you are writing any code, this is how your HTML will look like. You get so sorry. Next slide. So what is HTML? HTML is the hypertext markup language. It describes the structure of a web page, which I just explained. And this is what you understand by the structure of a web page. This is how a web page will look like if you're only using HTML without any CSS. Stop calling up now.
Hello, Emmanuel. If you are speaking, we can't hear you. You are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now
Okay, fine.
we can hear you.
Yeah, is it from the beginning or when do you stop hearing me?
When you tried explaining what HTML is,
Okay, from here.
yes.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for the observation. So HTML is what we call the hypertext markup language. And HTML describes the structure of a web page. You get so this is how HTML look like. If you are working on HTML only, you can see it. This is the structure of every website. This is how it's going to look like without any CSS. Why is this always coming down? Is there a way I can remove this stuff that's coming? So once you are working with HTML, the first thing you need to know is that we have tags. Example of tag is our H1 tag, is our paragraph tag, which is also what we have here. This is our H1 tag, H2 tag, 3, 4, and this is the paragraph tag, which I'm trying to show you for my code here. We have header tag, we have H1 tag, we have paragraph tag, and we have some other tag. So the first thing to know is H1 tag is totally bigger than H2 tag, H3 tag, and H6 tag is the smallest, which we have here. So this is an example. You can see this text here is bigger than this one, bigger than this one, bigger than this one, this one. This is an example of a paragraph tag. So now once we are working with HTML, yeah, we need to like understand the basic structure of HTML present. So first of all, we have the head and we have the body. Now the head contains what is going to be like, what is on the header of the website, which is like here now. I don't know if you can see. I think this is blocking it. The thing up here is my header tag. While the body is what you see in our web page, which is all this that we're seeing here. You get all this is our body, and all this is going to be inside our body. So common HTML elements, we have the H1 to H6. I think I've explained that one. We have the paragraph. I think I've explained that one. We have the anchor tag, which is the A tag, and this one is to like add link and the rest. We have the image tag. We have the URL, UL and OL tag, and we have some other tags. So let me just show an example of a link tag now. Now, this is an example of a link tag. You get, in case you want to link your website to any page. This is also another example. Right? I put another example of a link tag here. Yeah, this is another example of a link tag. Now, if I click it, you can see it's open my browser to another page. Example of a link tag. Sorry. We have the image tag. Image tag is for adding image to our website. This is an example here. Which is this image I added. This is an example of an image tag. And we have the list tag, which we have another list and other list. Now, this is an example of an on other list, which we have the dots, which we can also start using our CSS. Our other list is, which is this one, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 like that. So now, when we're not talking of CSS, what is CSS? CSS is cascading style sheet. CSS is like to add styles, color, layout to our website. CSS is just like, okay, make our website like more beautiful to people, you get, so they can use it and everything. Because anybody that see your website like this might not like be interested to like, okay, look, what is your website all about? But with CSS, you can, okay, you can like, okay, let me see what your website is about. So let me just show an example. Let me add my CSS to this stuff. So, I can see there's even between how my website look like when I was only using HTML. I can see when I added my CSS, it's not even looking more better now. The design and everything. So this is what CSS does to your website. Now, inside CSS, you have you can separate design from the structure, which you have the background color. You can give it a color, you can give it a background color, you can give it a front family, you can give it a size and the rest. So now we have 3 methods of adding CSS to our website. First of all, we have inline CSS. Inline CSS in the sense that you add your CSS inside your HTML code. This is an example of an inline CSS. Inline CSS. Yeah, this is an example of an inline CSS. Now you can see this is a red bold text inline CSS, color red, front with bold. I'll show you on the website now. On my website, yeah, you can see it. This is an example of an inline CSS. If I change the color, so let's say green now. Yeah, color is not changed. It's loading. Yeah, you can see say the color have changed. So inline CSS means you're working inside your CSS. Although it's not really advisable to use inline CSS. So now to the second method of adding CSS to our website is internal CSS. Internal CSS is like we are adding CSS inside our HTML, but not inside our body tag. We just add it inside our head, and it's going to be like on top of our body and the rest. This is an example of an inline CSS. Okay, I think there's no example of inline CSS. So that's adding it on the top of our CSS, of our HTML. Right, lastly, we have external CSS, which is the best of adding CSS, because once you're working on it, like a website that is very large, now you're working on code of like 1,000 codes. You cannot be writing your CSS inside your HTML. So external CSS is like writing your CSS inside another folder. And you link it to your HTML. This is an example of external CSS now. This is an example of an external CSS, and I'm linking it to my HTML using my link tag here, which href to the name of my CSS here. So without this external CSS now, right, remove it. You see that our website is not working at all. You can see how our website look like. The page is not looking fine and the rest like that. So this is example of an external CSS. So let me add it back. Okay. Let me just go back up. So now, now we have CSS selectors. We have CSS selectors. CSS selectors are like, say I mentioned we have HTML tag. So now if you want to style, okay, let's say you want to style our H1 tag now. You go to our CSS file. You will take, okay, let's say you want to style H1. Which is this H1. We'll go to our CSS file now. That will call CSS selector. And we can name it. Then, okay, let me just give you an example. Now. We can name it H1 and we open it. If you want to change the background color, give it background color. Background. Color. Green. Why is it not showing? Green. Why is it background? Okay, let me do that. But this is an example of HTML tag. H1. So you can also, sorry, this is an example of a CSS selector. You can also use CSS selector by giving it a class. And if you give it a class, you just give it a dot, whatever. So now now we have the CSS box model. Inside the CSS box model, it contains the content, the padding, the border, and the margin. Let me give you an example of how a CSS box model look like. Yeah. This is an example of how a box model looks like. Now, here is where our contents will be. Here is where the padding will be. Here is where the border will be. And here is where the margin is. Okay, so this is an example of what they call it, a box model of our box model. And if you are moving on with this thing, with CSS, if you want to like structure your web page, there are two things you must know, which is the flexbox and the grid. We are starting with the flexbox. Flexbox, if you learn this two method, like there's no like kind of web page you cannot like structure without using CSS if you are good. So I will just show you an example of how a flexbox is and how a grid is. So now here is an example of how a flexbox is like. Here now is a flexbox. You can see this placed side by side. While for the grid, which is the second one, which is down here, it is placed on top of each other. Although you can also like restructure it to be placed side by side. But if you learn this thing now, it's also help you like when you want to create the layout of your website. So about creating the layout of your website, you have to consider the flexbox and the grid. So after we have done flexbox and then with that, if you have learned this simple thing about HTML and CSS, then you should be able to like create any like simple thing yet. So although it is more than this, but with this little knowledge, you should like create a simple website. And then we come to the end of this presentation. So best practice thing you need to know is one, learn to also keep your code clean. Also, learn to use semantic tag, HTML tag for clarity. Also, best practice, I say should also separate our structure from our CSS, which is also using our external CSS, not using inline CSS. Also use external style sheets for maintainability and test across multiple browsers and devices. So once you're like done with creating a website, you can, this is like Chrome now, you can open Firefox and all the other browsers to also like text for it, test it if it's like the same thing. So HTML and CSS is the foundation of every website. If you master this, you master the web. So thank you. I've come to the end of my presentation. So do anybody have any question? Okay, Emeka Friday, can go on.
Okay, yeah, I have a contribution. Yeah. So, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
But please, can you please